Welcome to MWEB's Entrepreneur Zone. Today I've got Marc from WhiskyBrother with me. Welcome, Marc.
Hi, Paul. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about WhiskyBrother.
WhiskyBrother is a dedicated whiskey store. It has been open now for just over 4 months, and the idea behind it is to provide whiskey enthusiasts with a safe haven, with a shop that focuses and specializes in whiskey, related paraphernalia, and the whole whiskey lifestyle and community aspect of it, not just whiskey itself.
And is this a business born out of your passion?
Definitely. I've been a passionate whiskey drinker for many years, and I always thought it'd be really nice to have a specialty store where I could go to. Instead of going to different bottle stores and different distributors, in a sense, to go to one place and find everything and get the specialty service as well. When you walk into some of these stores, it can be quite daunting depending on how much you do or do not know. There's a lot of products, there's a lot of brands. So the idea is to create a store where even if you're not that familiar with the brands or some of the expressions, there's someone there to help you and guide you in your purchase. And
you're not from a retail background, so this has been a bit of a change for you?
Very much a change. Not from a retail background at all. Apart from being a shopper, that's the most experience I've had. So definitely quite a change, coming across from corporate, from a 9 to 5 in a sense, now having to be a lot more flexible. And although I've worked in customer service before, it's very much a different aspect dealing with customers on a daily basis.
And so how did you go about setting it up, getting the finance, deciding on the store location?
It was a project a long time in the making. I think originally it was just a pipe dream to think, all the thought was, how cool would it be if such a place existed? And then over the years, starting to think more about it and would it be possible to do it myself? And I looked around and it still didn't exist in South Africa. And I'd shared the idea with a few close individuals in my network, in a sense. And there was a lot of support, there was a lot of feedback and encouragement. And then speaking to a particular friend and family friend about a year and a half ago, he actually brought it up again and said, what's happening with your whiskey shop? When are you opening up a whiskey shop? And it kind of almost snowballed from there. He was willing to help me with finance as well. I did what I could in terms of my lifestyle to strip out any excessive, kind of not purchasing but spending. I sold my car, I bought a scooter, I cashed in my provident fund, and I did as whatever I could to try and raise the capital. And everything I couldn't raise, this individual came on board and not only encouraged me and supported me, but then gave me the finance as well.
That's a brave move that you made, and obviously you're committed to your passion and your business.
Yes, I keep saying I don't know if it's brave yet. If it succeeds, it's brave. If it fails, it was just another foolish, business venture that kind of failed to get the right kind of friction. But it is exciting, and I don't regret the change.
A big part of retail is where you select to position your store. Tell us about the process that you went through there.
It wasn't as complicated as I think it could have been, and I think it was a benefit. Being somewhat naive to location, location's important, but I didn't do the same. I didn't do as extensive groundwork with regards to location as I did to product, for example. But the store is obviously it's positioned to a higher earning individual, I guess higher LSM. People who are buying whiskey, etc. So it was about putting in the right type of environment where I had traffic and I had exposure, as well as the right type of people that would ideally have the disposable income and could afford the items I'm selling.
And what's the sort of price range? Just
my entry level whiskey is around 120 rand. So I mean that's kind of as low as you can go for a good bottle of whiskey. And I have I have whiskey all the way up to 40,000 rand, and even above that in 1 or 2 instances.
So it's a capital intensive business.
It is. I think it's also relative to what kind of business you're starting. Apart from the stock, there wasn't much else capital required. Apart from some of the store fitting. So I think for any business, startup or not, you need a capital component, and for a retail store, the capital will more often than not be in your stock. So it is something I have to manage very closely. Even now, I don't order as much stock as I'd like to. I think it does result in more admin, but as a new business, that's what I have to. The cash flow is kind of has the potential to cripple you if not managed correctly. So I maybe only order 2 or 3 bottles of an item. In future, when I have the money, I'll just order 2 or 3 cases and not have to worry for 6 months. And now it's a daily task of managing my stock and indirectly managing my cash flow.
As a startup, the big part of it is trying to kind of get the word out there and let people know about it. I believe you had a very successful blog to begin with. How have you utilized that in social media?
It definitely has been a great assistance to the store, and like you said, so I've had the WhiskyBrother blog for about 3 years now, and the WhiskyBrother brand was found online on Twitter, as a blog. And the idea there, it originally was, I was kind of on my whiskey journey and I was looking to learn more, and as I was learning, I was looking to share the information and meet like-minded whiskey drinkers, both locally and internationally. And the blog still exists for that reason. For me, whiskey drinking is about the community that share the interest, that share the passion for the products, share a passion for the drinks. So I'm still active online via multiple social media channels, and I still try and I think now my challenge is to keep independent. It's not just a sales pitch. I still love blogging. I still love learning about whiskey. I still love sharing. I still love meeting new drinkers, even if they're not going to be customers of the shop. I'd still love to engage with anyone who loves and shares my passion. So now the challenge is to keep both alive, to keep the kind of the sales aspect separate to the blog and the social media, but the store was born out of, I think, social media in a sense. It was my participation online and via the blog that enabled me to meet like-minded drinkers. They gave me the confidence and the comfort that the store could actually be successful.
How are you educating those of us that are not as au fait with good whiskey?
It's a one-on-one process, to be honest. I do whiskey tastings. At the moment, I do several whiskey tastings a week, and that's a great environment to bring several people, a small group up to pace with regards to certain aspects of whiskey and production and history, etc. But mainly it's a one-on-one activity within the store. So as someone comes into the store, depending on their level of knowledge, everyone is at a different position, but they'll have a look around, and often they have questions, and also I try and start the conversation. Offer them a whiskey, ask them what they like, ask them what they're drinking currently, and then based on their answers, to try and either introduce them to something new, or to maybe even just give them a further insight into what they currently drink.
Marc, do you see this as a growth industry?
I definitely do. I think, well, not I think, but the stats show that on an international basis and on a global basis, whiskey is at an all-time high. Particularly in emerging markets, there's great demand for whiskey, particularly as an aspirational drink. And in South Africa, although the latest stats show that we've dropped slightly in volume and in value, the difference is quite small. And South Africa is one of the top 10, previously even top 5 markets for whiskey, for Scotch whiskey exports. So South Africa, I think in general, we're actually quite a large consumer of whiskey. And to think that we would consume such a large amount and yet there's no dedicated store, seemed, kind of also gave me it was a sign, it gave me some confidence that a store like I'm trying to create could be viable.
In terms of opening a store that sells whiskey, what was your requirement in terms of the law and the legislation?
I think compared to other businesses, it's not as onerous as some industries. I do require a liquor license to trade. And in order to get a liquor license, there's obviously a particular approval process that is quite lengthy. There was a bit of a delay in getting it, so it did hinder the opening of the store by a month or two. But apart from that, not too much else, thankfully. There are some requirements around getting whiskey into the country, though. So in terms of getting unusual expressions, unusual brands, South Africa have quite stringent import regulations for alcohol and for whiskey in particular. So there, it's just hopefully a process where if I can grow the right kind of demand and I can harness the demand that I believe exists, then it will make it worthwhile to the distilleries in Scotland and throughout the world to bottle exclusively for South Africa and meet our requirements in terms of our labelling and our bottle and our alcohol levels.
One of the difficulties, I'm sure, as you grow as a business is that to have the right kind of staff in the store, they have to be experts in their field. How do you go about recruiting people and training them?
Yeah, I think, whiskey, there's so much to learn, there's so much history that I'll never find someone that knows everything. I mean, I think very few people, and no one I've met, even whiskey writers, admit to being an expert. It's all relative, of course. We the staff and myself included just need to know more than I think the average drinker. But I think more importantly is to find staff with a passion for whiskey. So even if they're starting out and they don't know that much, if they have the passion to learn, then over time they'll have the necessary knowledge. At the moment, I'm in that store 7 days a week, and the idea is that it's very personal. The brand is personal to me as well, and I think I do have the right level of knowledge to be able to deal with the vast majority of drinkers. At the moment, I only have one other employee, so it's still it's very small. And there he used to work with some of the brands before. He was a brand rep, so for several of the whiskey brands. So he knows a bit, but and it's very much a learning activity in the store. When it's quiet, the two of us kind of also quick fire and ask different questions, talk about the brands. I quiz him. And we're both constantly learning. It's not just about him learning, but on a weekly basis, there's something new happening in the world of whiskey, and the idea is to try and keep abreast of that. So there's always something new to learn.
I'm going to ask you a whiskey question. Then I read somewhere that an occasional drink of whiskey is good for your health. Is it true?
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. I don't know if doctors would prescribe it. They used to during Prohibition in America. You could get a prescription to drink some whiskey. But I think as long as it's in moderation and it's done responsibly, I don't think it's bad for health at all.
Marc, where do you see your business growing to?
For now, it's just baby steps. It's because it's so new. It's like I said, it's only 4 months in the making. I think we have a long way to go. But it's to bed down the store, to get to a level where it operates without my direct involvement on a daily basis. I'll always choose to be there to a degree. I enjoy the engagement with the community. But at least on quieter days, I can step out and work on other whiskey projects. So I've got lots of ideas. It all depends on, I think, what the demand is as well. Since I've opened the store, I've seen an incredible demand for whiskey tastings, to a degree much higher than I anticipated. So I think if I had the capital available, it would talk towards that, trying to set up either a venue or some kind of tasting room where I could do more people at once. Still keep it small and intimate, but not only get away with 8 people, but try and get 15 people in there, etc. I'm looking at exclusive bottlings for the store. I'm looking at group tours to Scotland and to other whiskey making regions with other drinkers. So there are lots of ideas, all a matter of and a question of time and money.
That brings us to our rapid fire question. Marc, what's the best advice you've ever received?
I'm still waiting for it, to be honest. I've received lots of good advice, but the best piece, I don't think, not yet.
And your best moment as an entrepreneur?
I think the first day of the store being open, that night, getting home and thinking, holy cow, I've got a whiskey shop.
And your biggest mistake?
Lots of little mistakes, thankfully. Nothing too big yet.
And what quality do you look for in people that you work with?
Passion, honesty, and reliability.
What quality does an entrepreneur need to succeed?
I think it's a combination of passion. You have to have a love for what you're trying to do, but I think you need the smarts as well. So you need the ability to be able to pull it off.
What's your biggest inspiration as a small business owner?
Other small businesses, other small guys that had a passion for what they wanted to do and created and are now successful big companies.
Would you do anything differently?
To be honest, no, not yet. I'm sure there'll be a mistake that I regret one day, but for now, thankfully, smoothish sailing.
What makes South Africa a good place to be a small business owner?
Lots of opportunity. I think, and if you give a good level of customer service and you really speak to people one-on-one, I think you really have the opportunity to connect and have it resonate with your customers.
What keeps you up at night?
All the bills that need paying and the list of to-do items. Just on a daily basis, there's not enough time in the day to get through everything that needs to be done.
And what gets you going in the morning?
The to-do list, to get through it, to have a clean slate by day's end, to interact with people that love and share the passion of for whiskey that I do.
Thank you very much, Marc.
Thank you, Paul.
And thank you for joining us. We look forward to the coming weeks. We will bring you further South African entrepreneurs. I'm Paul Hobden. Thank you and goodbye.